This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. I get asked often about commercial pool service, whether you should take it on or not. And there are some good reasons to take on commercial pool service, and also some equally good reasons to pass on it. So I'm going to go over a lot of the pros and cons and the ins and out of commercial pool service for you here today. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. When I first started out doing pool service, I did do residential and commercial pool service, and I must say that I didn't really enjoy the commercial pool service aspect of it. Some people really enjoy it. They like doing the commercial pool service for a number of reasons. I think you don't really have to deal with clients per se, but you do have to deal with a lot of complaints from tenants, of course. Not the same thing, I guess. You also can make more money, of course, doing commercial pool service, and sometimes maximize your time out there with more money also. But there are also negative aspects of losing time out there with commercial pool service. I really think, and this is something that I've said before, that if you are going to do commercial pool service, you should do either or. It should be just commercial pool service or just residential pool service. And I don't think they really mix well together. If you're doing a lot of residential pools and you have 2 or 3 commercial pools, those tend to eat up a lot of your time, make scheduling difficult. And it's one of those things where it may not be worth having just 1 or 2 commercial pools versus just replacing those with residential pools and forgetting about the commercial pool service. On the other end of it, if you have 10 or 12 commercial pools, it doesn't make any sense to me to have 20 or 30 residential pools as well. It's not a very balanced route, and I don't think you can do both successfully well. Now, you can do both, but you can't, I don't think, do it successfully well. What I mean by that, if you're going to be successful in residential pool care, you should be focused on residential clients, getting as many residential pools as possible, having fairly easy residential pools as well, not a lot of heavy tree leaf debris getting in the pool, and not really large residential pools. You want to have a balance. You can have some large pools, some heavy debris pools, but you don't want to have a large percentage of that. You want to have a large percentage of pools that are pretty easy in and out pools. And then if you have commercial accounts on top of that with those residential pools, it does add a layer of stress and a layer of more effort than you really need to apply if you want to make your business a purely successful residential pool care business. And then on the same note, with commercial pools, since it takes up a lot of time and energy and effort, you don't want to break that up with a handful of residential pools that you really can't maintain at that level that you would want to because you're focused on the commercial pools. Now, you don't have to do this. I'm not saying that if you do commercial pools, you have to split it. But I just found, or I find, I should say, that the most successful companies that are doing commercial pool service only do commercial pool service. And those that kind of dabble in it and don't do it exclusively don't do as well. And there is a lot of money to be had in commercial pool service because you can charge more per account, of course. The pools are larger usually, not all the time, but usually they're larger, and you're going to charge more of a premium because you're doing something that requires you to, of course, have a CPO certification. If you're in Los Angeles County like myself, you're going to need to be certified by the Los Angeles County Health Department, and it does require a lot more effort to maintain that pool. As Bob Lowry says, with residential pools, it's not really anything to worry about because you're not really worried about bather to bather disease transmission. It's usually your family and relatives. Where in a commercial pool, you're a bunch of strangers swimming together, and so disease to disease body transmission is much more prevalent, and therefore the focus on commercial pools is preventing that. You don't want sickness to be spread by the bathers, and it's something that is a huge focus, and that's why you charge a premium, because there's more liability for, of course, the commercial pool account, the apartment complex or hotel or HOA community, versus if it was just a residential pool where it doesn't really matter if you're swimming with, your relatives or maybe a few friends here and there. Not a big issue compared to a commercial pool. So that's why you charge a premium, because you're really making sure that no one's going to get sick by using the pool, and that the pool is safe to swim in, the chemistry is balanced, and you're going to visit that pool more often for that reason. You're going to clean the pool more often, you're going to check the chemicals more often, and typically most commercial pools are either every day during the week if they're really large, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes you can get away with 2 days a week, but very rarely, I think, in most cases. And sometimes you can get away with 1 day a week if it's a small commercial pool. But I think a lot of times a commercial pool will require multiple visits per week. And therein lies the problem, again, if you do residential pools and commercial pools, because it's going to be a big time constraint on you if you're doing that commercial pool Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you have a residential route built around that. Also, you're charging for the chemicals separately in almost all the cases with commercial pools, so you're going to make more money with the chemical markup on that. So it can be very lucrative, again, because there's much more money to be had in the commercial arena, but then you have more headaches. I mentioned the health department, you have to also pass inspections, and there's all kinds of problems that could cause the pool to be shut down by the health department, and there's all kinds of problems with the added headache factor, as I call it, with commercial service accounts. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. For you to be successful with commercial service accounts, you have to actually bid them correctly. There's a lot of people that kind of bid them as if they're a residential pool, and they actually lose money on it, and they wonder why they're getting burned out doing this commercial pool. They seem like they're not making any money. Again, I mentioned that chemicals should be charged separately. So if you have a commercial service account and you're including the chemicals, you're making a mistake right there. It has to be separate, because you don't really know day in and week in, or month in and month out, how much chemicals the pool is going to be using. If you include the chemicals and you're in July and it's 100 degrees for 2 weeks and the pool is being cremated basically by people using it, you can't really absorb the cost of that chlorine. You have to charge the hotel or the apartment complex for that. And if you're absorbing that, you're going to lose a lot of money. So that's the number one mistake a lot of people make. It's like, oh, I'll just charge them, $1,000 a month and I'll include all the chemicals. And they find out they're spending $500 on chemicals in July. I mean, you just lost all your profit in 1 month. And it's really something to consider that you need to charge separately. Also, underbidding because of the pool size. I use a formula that's pretty simple for commercial pool service. You take your residential pool service rate. Let's just say you're doing and you just do the average size pool. Let's just say it's a 15,000 gallon pool, and you charge, I'm going to just say $200 a month to keep it simple here. Let's just say that's about $50 a visit, even though there may be more weeks where you have an extra service day, but $50 a visit sounds pretty fair. And let's just say you have a 50,000 gallon commercial pool. So if you wanted to do simple math, and again, each visit for the residential pool is $50 at $200 a month, and you visit it 4 times a month, And let's say you're bidding on a 50,000 gallon commercial pool. Well, if it's $50 a month for a 15,000 gallon pool, you would just simply times that by 3 and you get about $150 a visit. Let's say you go there 3 times a week times 3. That's $450 a week. And then you charge the chemical separately. That sounds fair. It sounds like you're making some money there, but you really need to add in some more money for the headache factor. Also, you have to add in money for a separate spa because a lot of them have spas that are separate from the pool, and some just have pools by themselves and no spa. But there are a lot of complexes that have dedicated spas with their own equipment. Some will have a kiddie pool, and so you have to factor that in. So let's just say there's a 10-foot spa that's on the premises to near the pool with separate equipment, and you're going to maintain that as well. So you're going to add that in. So you want to add each service visit for the spa in as well. Let's just say, for sake of argument, you're charging $25 a visit for the spa. So you want to times that so you want to add $75 for that. You may charge more, of course, but I'm just trying to keep the math simple. So now you're at $525 a week, and you times that by 4. It's like $2,100 for this 50,000 gallon pool with a 10-foot spa. Seems good. Seems like you're going to make money there, but in reality, you're not making any money because if you had a residential pool with a fiberglass spa on the deck also, and you're charging $50 and you're charging some more money to maintain that spa, you're basically doing the same work at a residential pool that you're doing at a commercial pool, but you're dealing with the health department, you're dealing with the management, with a lot of tenants or a lot of residents, you're dealing with a lot of usage and cleaning. And so it's not a direct translation to take your residential rate and just kind of extrapolate that into commercial rate, because then you're not making any money and you're doing a lot more work for it, and you have a huge headache factor you're not accounting for. So what you really need to do is add what I call the headache premium. And so it's more than $50 a visit, of course, because now you're dealing with all these other problems and situations, and the math would look more like this. And I think you need to change your multiplier. So it's not just $50 like you would charge for a residential pool. Let's just say you want to use an $80 multiplier. So 80 times 3, which is the size of the pool. So now you're at $240 per visit times 3 times a week. That's $720. And then you times that just by 4. We'll keep it simple. That's about $2,880, or let's just say $3,000 a month for that. And then you add the spa on there, of course, and you're going to charge a little bit extra, more than I think $25 a visit. And let me just add that. Let's just say you do $40 for the spa times 3 times 4. So about $3,500 a month would be a pretty fair price for this commercial pool, 50,000 gallon pool with an attached spa plus chemicals. And now you're going to make some money there. You probably want to go a little higher in some regards, depending on your area. It's kind of area dependent. And there'll be people that are going to underbid you, which is pretty crazy because they're not going to make any money. Because if you did the math the way I did it, and you're doing the same math as you're doing for residential pools, but you have all these other factors you've added on to it, you're not making any money because you might as well just take on 3 residential pools, 3 15,000 gallon pools, make the same amount of money and go to bed and not worry about it and sleep easy. So instead of having this one commercial pool, you would add 9 residential pools and have 0 headache factors, really, not having to deal with the health department, deal with any kind of problems, and make just as much money. So in order for commercial pool service to work, again, this is why a lot of people dedicate themselves just to commercial pool service. You have to really invest your time and effort into building up this commercial pool service route. And then you have to, of course, charge enough to make it viable for you to do this. And then you have to also add in a kind of a loss factor ratio, because if you lose one of these commercial pools, you lose a ton of money, a ton of income, and you want to make sure that you have excess so that you can actually lose a pool by someone else underbidding you, which happens a lot, or an HOA gets a new board and they don't like the pool service, or one of them's complaining about it, or someone's complaining about it too much, and they get bids for the pool service, and then they replace you, and you lose that commercial account. So it's also one of those things where you need to have enough commercial accounts to where if one is lost, you can you can kind of float your budget that month until you get another one to replace that. And if you're doing commercial pool service only, acquiring another account is not that difficult in a lot of regards because you're on the radar of a lot of people, and you can do some cold calling, or you can go bid some pools yourself, and you'll get some calls from other people to bid it. If you get in an HOA, sometimes the manager manages like 40 complexes, and so if they're having a problem with one pool service, they may have you take care of another complex. So there's a bunch of opportunities available if you're doing that. Now, if you're doing residential and one or two commercial pools and you lose this kind of commercial account that you're getting $3,500 a month on, that's a huge hit on your income and really hard to replace. And so residential pools may be a little more stable because the chances of you losing 9 or 10 pools in a month are extremely slim. You may lose 1, 2 if you're not doing your job correctly, but you're not going to lose 10 or 12 residential pools in a month. And so you're not going to have a huge income deficit that you would have if you lose one commercial account. And you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket either. You want to make sure that you're big enough, and that's why companies that specialize in commercial accounts can absorb something like that. I mean, yes, it hurts to lose an account that you're getting $3,500 or $4,000 a month from, but you have several accounts where you're getting a good income from those, and you're budgeting in maybe this 10% loss factor so that if that does happen, you're not going to go out of business, basically. But if you're doing residential pools and you have a commercial pool and you lose that commercial pool, that could really be devastating to your budget. It'd be like losing 10 or 12 pools in 1 month, residential pools. And last, I would like to emphasize that commercial pool service does take a different personality entirely. If you're not really business savvy, if you have trouble communicating with management companies, with someone who's on site maybe, with the health department, if you can't get along with people well, and sometimes you can't, sometimes that's not your specialty, dealing with an apartment manager that keeps calling you and is complaining about different things, or the health department that's complaining about, your pH being too low in a spa and they want you to raise it up. If you can't deal with that, I wouldn't advise doing commercial pools because that's what you're going to be dealing with all the time. And if you don't have the thick skin, or if you don't have the ability to take those calls all the time from the management companies, you really can't do commercial pool service because you can't handle it. And they're going to eventually cancel and find somebody who can handle it better. So there is a level of business skill that's necessary to do commercial accounts. It's not like, okay, yeah, I'm going to bid on this pool. I'm pretty good at cleaning pools. I know what I'm doing. And by the way, you may get to a commercial account and get to the equipment room and be scratching your head because some of them look like, submarine engine rooms. They're just so crazy down there in the basement. You want to know the first thing to do or which valve to turn. And that, of course, is why you charge a premium as well, because the headache factor is not just complaints or the health department. It's actually operating this commercial pool successfully, knowing which valves to turn, knowing how to backwash certain filters and which valves to turn off, and how to, all the turning off 4 skimmers and having 1 skimmer working only when you're vacuuming. And by the way, you probably would want to have a portable filtration system like the Advantage PortaVac on the site. That way you can avoid doing all that, but that's a whole nother thing. And you really want to add that into your price because the equipment rooms are a whole nother beast in some cases, where residential pads are pretty simple. You may run into one that has like 3 or 4 booster pumps. Not a big deal. You'll figure that out quickly. But a commercial service account may have an equipment room where you just sort of like looking like a deer caught in the headlights. So that's also something to consider, the level of commitment with a commercial account. But back to the fact that you have to really have the business ability, and that's something that can cost you accounts if you don't have that business savviness. And it can gain you a lot of accounts in commercial pool service as well. So if you're really good at business and you really like dealing with these big complexes and you have that kind of personality or that kind of leaning, you can be really successful with commercial accounts. And I've known many companies that have been highly successful. They really love it. They have employees. They do a good job. They don't really have a lot of turnover, and they make their clients happy, and they make good money. But again, it's a certain personality and a certain level of service. If you've just been doing this for a year or year and a half, I would probably advise against commercial pools because there is a big learning curve with commercial pools that you may not understand everything or every element that goes with the equipment room or with dealing with commercial pools. And you may not want that liability. You may not want the extra layer of liability. If something happens at one of your commercial accounts, the liability can be pretty high, much higher than a residential pool, and you don't want to deal with that. So you really have to have the right mindset, the right personality, and the right business model to take on commercial accounts successfully. It's not only about pricing them correctly, but it's actually about maintaining them and servicing them to where you're not going to get that canceled on you and lose that account. It's a lot different than the residential pool when Mr. Jones comes out and complains about there being a little algae in the step. With a commercial pool, with the manager saying, you know what, you've had algae here twice now this month. I'm going to start getting bids for another company because you can't handle this, and this may happen. And so you have to really be on the ball and really avoid these complaints. And by the way, if you're a good business person, you can really handle that manager a lot better. And I don't think it'll come to that point. So these are skills that you have to have the ability to manage people that have maybe abrasive personalities that are running the complex. And again, so many different layers. And when I did commercial pool service, I thought I had a pretty good aptitude for it and I was pretty good at it. I didn't like it. I just didn't like going there and seeing the pool trashed every week or every visit that I went there. Sometimes I mentioned this pool that I could never get clear because it was in the middle of this apartment complex, 3-story apartment complex, and the pool was like the center attraction. And it just was never not cloudy. And I mentioned the health department had mercy on me. They knew that, this kind of setup never was clear. He never wrote me up for like the cloudy pool. The chemicals were okay, and he didn't really care too much. He was a pretty nice, easygoing person. But that's something that I didn't like dealing with. I like going to my pools and being able to see the bottom and not worrying about someone propping the gate open, not worrying about diapers floating in the water. It's just kind of not in my wheelhouse to deal with that. I just didn't like doing that. And I much rather go into a backyard where the only thing I have to worry about is, did I bring the dog treat back for the dog here? Or, is the pool, are they going to have a party this weekend? Little things like that is all I want to worry about. And so again, you may want to do commercial pools. You may not want to. And it's something you may want to dip your feet into. And it's something that you may just want to avoid. There's no shame in being a pool service professional and not doing any commercial pools. If you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded, you can, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel Monday through Friday. I post one there. Or go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, and on the banner, click on the podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of other podcasts for you there. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.